So I wanted to talk about, as Jonathan said, we're going to talk about kind of 3 different angles of product launches, and specifically the angle that I want to talk about is the situation that I found myself in about 1.5 years ago, which was launching Riskified's first new product. So, and the kind of challenges that came with that, and what we learned. So about me, I have been at Riskified for about 6 years. I've been a product marketeer for about 3 years. I also write books on the side. Actually, I guess I do Riskified on the side now. And so I have a few novels out. I also I'm also amateur. Well, I don't do this anymore, but I had a kind of quarter-life crisis and was a street musician for a while. Before I worked at Riskified, I was a statistics and economics professor in New York. So I don't think I would be hired by Riskified today, actually, now that I think about it. So, okay. So what I want to talk about is first kind of the decision that went into launching this first new product. What I encountered as a PMM who was in charge of that, and sort of how we dealt with it, and things that we didn't do to deal with it but that we should have, and kind of how maybe you guys can kind of learn something to take away if you find yourself in a similar situation. Okay, so first I just want to talk about Riskified to set the stage. So again, the scenario was that we had this one really successful product that we started with in 2012, and this product was enough to take us from, an office of 5 people to 900 people today listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And all of these customers, Ticketmaster, Macy's, Prada, whatever, they really got started with us because of that first amazing product, which I'm bringing this up because that actually ended up being a little bit of a challenge to me later on. So this is our flagship product. It's called Chargeback Guarantee. Here's the elevator pitch. When people ask, "What do I do?" and I don't want to bore them, and I have about 4 sentences. So when you buy something online at Macy's, Macy's has to make a decision about whether to approve or decline the order. Right? They want to decline it if it's fraud. So in other words, if I buy something, they have to decide, is this Ephy or not, or somebody who stole Ephy's card. If they make a mistake and approve a fraudulent order, and then I eventually see that someone has made a purchase with my card, and I call my bank and complain, Macy's is the one who ends up paying for that chargeback. I didn't know that before I started working at Riskified. So for Macy's, that's a really hard situation to be in because on one hand, they don't want to pay those chargebacks. On the other hand, it's equally bad, or perhaps even worse, to decline a bunch of good orders of good customers because you're scared that they're fraudulent. So our product is, when someone places an order at, say, Macy's, they send it to us. We tell them whether to approve it or not. And if we make a mistake and approve the fraud, then we will reimburse them for the chargeback. Pretty good, yeah. It's a pretty straightforward, clear business proposition, and don't tell any of the salespeople that I say this, but it kind of sells itself, honestly. Okay, so over the course of selling this, there was an issue that we started hearing more and more about from the merchants we were working with, which was account takeovers. Now, an account takeover is sort of, let's think of it as like a parallel fraud world, related fraud. And this is adding an additional step to that fraud. Now the fraudster gets my login credentials to my Macy's account, Ephy at Riskified, whatever, and my password. So once they're into that site, then they can do all sorts of fraud. They can steal my loyalty points, they can check out, blah, 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 blah. And as we were selling Chargeback Guarantee, we started hearing merchants talk about this problem more and more. Our core product, which I described, I think it doesn't take any imagination here for you to imagine how we sell it, right? We can show a very clear Excel spreadsheet showing how much money we can save you, right? The problem of account takeovers is very, very serious, but it's different. And this is the real problem with account takeovers, is that when they happen to your store, you can have a PR disaster like this, right? This is like a company's worst nightmare, is to end up in the headlines or trending on Twitter or whatever because all their customers' accounts were hacked. So it's a different problem, and one that's actually much more difficult to quantify. I'll come back to that. Okay, so we decided that a solution to stop account takeovers was going to be our first add-on, a new product line. And the reason that we decided, now this wasn't the only candidate. The reason we decided to go with that product as opposed to something else. First of all, as I mentioned, it was something that our merchants who we were working with were talking about. So we knew that it was something that the market needed. Our competitors were starting to add it on as well. Frankly, in some ways that leaves you no choice, right? We need to keep up with the competition, and we need to also differentiate from those that don't have such a service. We had the IPO kind of in the back of our minds, knowing that we wanted to IPO as a multi-product platform company, not as a one-product company, so this was important for timing. We also knew we could get it out relatively fast because we could repurpose a lot of the tech that we already built for our main solution for this problem. We had a lot of it built already. And we also felt like that was going to give us an enormous advantage even over the incumbents. Maybe I'll just give you 2 minutes about exactly why that is. This is, I don't know, some scary looking product marketing maybe. But basically, in a nutshell, we'll have visibility when somebody logs into their site, and we'll have visibility when someone checks out, because that was our main product. Now, most solutions in the market only look at your behavior when you log in. So we were going to be able to say, hey, we also know what happens after they log in when they check out. That gives us the visibility to see what happens after login, so we can learn from our mistakes and do better next time. We have a feedback loop, which most of these providers didn't have. Okay. So we decided to launch this product. It had been in beta with like a few design partners for about 1.5 years, and we decided it was time to go public with it. And that task was going to fall largely to product marketing. At Riskified, now as Jonathan said, product marketing can mean kind of different things at different places. At Riskified, it means wearing a lot of hats, as it does in many places. So in addition to being the person who understands the market problem the best, you have to know all the competitors, you have to know what the pain points of the market are. You also have to be able to take this kind of techie product, which is kind of just an ethereal string of code, and convey it and make it a compelling story, like the one I just told. And you are called upon really by every part of the organization who needs they need your product knowledge, they need your insights about how to communicate. You are sort of the expert on this domain. Now, Riskified in particular, I don't think it's not so unique necessarily to be kind of in the middle of things, but at Riskified in particular, our sales cycles from the time that we start talking to a merchant to the time we integrate is usually about 2 years. And as you can imagine, also, it takes us a long, long time to build products, right? What that means is that we are never, ever selling what we have today. Again, don't tell any of the e-commerce world this. But right, if we sell what we have today, then we're way behind. We're selling what we're going to have in a year and a half, or 2 years. And by the time that they decide to integrate and test us out, the sale has basically have been made. What that means is that in effect, we don't really sell a product. We sell the story, right? It's the step of like validating the performance is a very, very late step in this sales cycle. And so when that's the case, product marketing is extra important, right? They're not coming to product asking, hey, what are these specifications? They're asking, what do we say? So it's a challenging but fun job. Okay, so I'm not going to dwell on this too much. This is nothing all that unique in terms of launch plan. I think probably anybody who has experience in product marketing is familiar with sort of the basics of it. You know, we needed to train sales. We need on the competitive landscape. We needed to give them a demo environment. We needed to tell them who they're selling to. We needed a testimonial from one of our merchants using the product. We needed to, put out some press, have some content. I'm not going to dwell on this. This is kind of textbook stuff. What's much more interesting, I think, is kind of all the interesting shit that followed that decision. So I'm going to sort of walk you through now the bumps in the road and how we tried to deal with these in real time. Okay. So let's talk about the testimonial. So our core product, we have in every contract that we have with merchants, almost every contract, we have the right to have a testimonial with them. And we have probably, every logo that we showed you before, the merchant has agreed to that. Right? We don't show our merchants logos unless they agree to do that. We have, 15 or 20 written case studies with merchants about our products. So I assumed, okay, great. So we've done that 20 times with our other products, so we'll just do it again with this other product. It turns out that with this account takeover product, merchants are very, very, very hesitant to have their name associated with anything having to do with cybersecurity. Even if the story is, look how good our cybersecurity is, they don't want their name and the word security in the same sentence. And so this was a year and a half ago. We actually still don't have a merchant who's been willing to put their name to this product. Our solution, I guess, was to write several anonymous case studies. Now, it turns out that in the cybersecurity world, this is actually fairly accepted practice because security experts understand what I didn't, which is that nobody wants to put their name on this thing. So we have a bunch of anonymous case studies that we put out. It's not as good, but frankly, the effect of showing a slide that shows our merchant network and then showing anonymous case studies and then a little winking gets most of the effect through. Okay. Then the question about sort of the testimonials sort of about getting material to sort of broadcast out to the world. That was kind of an external announcement, but there was a lot of work from the PMM side, of course, as you guys know, about internal readiness. So I had assumed, and I think many of my peers did as well, that hey, we are launching a second product. What could possibly be more exciting than that? We expect the whole company to be celebrating essentially, we were kind of victims. I was a victim, I should say, of our success. As I showed you, we have an incredibly successful core product, right? As you guys know, most products fizzle and die, right? We had like a 1 in 10,000 product that we went to market with. That sets pretty high expectations, right? This new product, even if it was going to be very good, was most likely not going to be as good as the one that we started with. And even if it was going to be great, it was going to take a while, right? Trying to think about what our chargeback guarantee looked like 7 years ago. It was a pretty primitive version of what we have today. And so there was kind of a misalignment in terms of everybody was a little bit excited before the launch, and then they're like, wait a second, how much MRR are we going to make? How much revenue are we going to make if we sell this to our merchants? Okay. You know, how much is this going to open doors for us? What kind of performance can we show on this? Very quickly, enthusiasm, I would say, waned around this new prospect. So the solution, what this necessitated, what's that? What this necessitated was that a large part of the PMM's role, in addition to all the things I showed before, was to, you know, as the person who understood the market the best, I had to explain constantly about how important this product was. So, you know, setting expectations about, yes, I know we're not going to make a lot of money from this for the first 3 years of it, but all of our competitors have it. But look at all the customers who are complaining about it. Think about how this is the fraud of the future. Sure, maybe most merchants don't care about it so much today, but if we don't have something built, then in 2025, everyone's going to be asking for it, and we're not going to have it. So there was a lot of evangelizing and you know, taking a couple extra coffees in the morning, trying to smile. I'm not so good at it, but I had to learn how to smile a little bit better. Sorry to the cameraman, by the way, and it's just doesn't work. All right, and finally, training sales. So again, we have a very, very talented sales organization. They're very smart. They're generally really able to communicate well, to distill complicated concepts into sort of clear stories. However, there were a lot of pushbacks once we started trying to enable them to train. And this is probably the biggest one, which is for 8 years, they'd gotten to sell to a certain person in the company, mostly the person in charge of fraud or in charge of payments. And they learned what this person likes, what they care about, and became very, very comfortable speaking to this kind of person. And this new product, it turns out, the person most interested in this product is the head of security. Now, while fraud and payments people care a lot about money and transactions, a CISO basically gets at, their day is good if nothing happens. They got out of bed in the morning just praying, I hope I don't get a call today. That's the CISO's point of view. So it's very hard to get sales to speak to somebody that they're not familiar with. It's also just learning a whole new world and terminology. It's a lot of work. Why should they do that? Why should they do it? Especially again, if the MRR, the monthly recurring revenue that you're going to get from this new product is less than the product that you're comfortable selling, why should you put in the work? So what happened effectively is that I became the de facto salesperson for this product. I'll be honest, it actually is a pretty good arrangement. For the salespeople, it works out well. They have a call, they pull me in, and I basically sell it. So it's easy for them. And from my point of view, it's actually great because I get to communicate directly with customers several times a week, which is one of the most important things as a product marketer, is to hear directly from customers to understand how they view issues. So I actually love it. The problem is, of course, that ultimately it's not scalable, right? Eventually salespeople need to sell. So we're actually getting to that point now that we have just now sort of put together a sales specialist team internally, which is selling new products. But it took a while for us to, the organization assumed, okay, they'll sell product 1, they'll sell product 2, and we really didn't see this coming. Okay, so I will just wrap up, leaving you with, that was a lot of information. So basically the takeaways, 2 kind of things, if you can just do 2 things well before launching a new product, I think these are kind of the big ones. So first of all is figuring out who's going to sell the product. And, and that includes the incentive structure, again, because I learned a lot about incentives, and sales in some ways is very simple. Like, salespeople will sell what they're incentivized to sell. It sounds pretty easy. In hindsight, it seems pretty obvious, but we got it wrong. And the second thing is we should have had more alignment early on about what we expected out of the first year or two of this product. Again, we couldn't help but be a little spoiled by our main product and expect people to knock down our doors getting an account secure, and it didn't happen. And we should have done a better job before the launch of setting expectations for that. So I think these are kind of the two biggies. I will leave it there. Are we taking, thanks, you can go ahead and clap.